Here's the thing, it's going to be an expensive afternoon, isn't it, obviously. Lord Lilley, very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us. Can we hear you?
I can hear you. I don't know whether you can hear me.
I can hear you now, yes. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. The Archbishop of Canterbury, of this parish, shall we say, he seems to get very worked up about immigration. He seems to think, and I said this the other day, that blessed are the people traffickers because they shall inherit an awful lot of money if they continue to do the work that they're doing. It seems remarkable to me that he doesn't see what's actually really going on, and that is that there are an awful lot of people making an awful lot of money illegally from preying on vulnerable people and helping some of them to be criminals.
Well, to be fair, I mean, there's a coalition of lefty lawyers, of mandarins, former, heads of department, and some of the bishops trying to eviscerate this illegal migrants bill that's going through Parliament. The most honest of them, in fact, is the Archbishop. Yeah. He does acknowledge that we've got to have some limit on the number of people coming here, and we've got to have policies to stop those who we don't want coming here, and he has promised those policies. I criticised him for having promised policies but not coming up with any, except a policy to have a policy. He's put down an amendment saying the government must have a strategy for 10 years, and then the government must bring policies to implement that strategy to government. That's not answering the question of what the opponents of the bill should offer instead of the bill. Right. As I say, he at least has the honesty to recognise the problems. The lawyers refuse even to address the problem and effectively are saying we should have open borders, which is far, far worse.
Well, it seems incredible to me that there is a body of people in this country, many of them lawyers, some of them politicians, who think that unbridled, completely unstoppable migration from anywhere in the world, from anybody, is allowable, which is absolute madness, isn't it?
It is madness, and it's unfortunately something that the courts are in a position to partially implement. We shouldn't criticise the courts for that. It's Parliament that has handed over the responsibility to courts to make what are fundamentally political judgments about who should come and who should not come. And we need to take that back from the courts by, I think, probably resigning from or overriding the European Declaration of Human Rights.
Yeah. What I find extraordinary as well is that the decision that was made by the Court of Appeal the other week, I thought was wrong in law, because what they appeared to have done is to make an assumption that Rwanda was not a safe country to send anybody to, on the basis that Rwanda might pass those migrants in turn back to their original home countries, which of course Rwanda can't do, because it doesn't have any return agreements with any of those countries. And so people have said to me, oh, well, they've taken the law that already exists and they've simply acted on it. I don't agree that that's true. What do you think?
Well, you're at one with the Lord Chief Justice, of course. Yeah. The most senior judge of the whole United Kingdom, who disagreed with his two juniors, but was outvoted by his two less senior judges. But it just shows that it's fundamentally a political judgment that they're making, not a legal one. Yeah. And they, in turn, of course, disagreed with the unanimous view of the Court of Appeal. So that too shows it's not something clear-cut. They can't say the law says this. We've handed over to them the job of making political judgments. We should take it back to Parliament. And until Parliament does that, then we're going to effectively be hamstrung by the courts, who may have their own political prejudices, but without their political prejudices, they'd still be making judgments which they shouldn't make.
Right, exactly. Well, that was the problem, wasn't it? Because Rishi Sunak said afterwards, well, we'll obviously appeal the case and presumably take it to the Supreme Court. But he also said, once we get our bill passed, then we'll be in good shape. Well, apparently not, if it's down to the House of Lords and the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Well, the House of Lords only has the power to make the House of Commons think again. Right. So after these amendments, they go back to the House of Commons. The House of Commons can then reject them or amend the amendments, and it comes back to us. There's a period of what we call ping-pong, where it goes back and forth. Right. Only if the House of Lords decides to reject the whole bill will it be delayed till next year, because the most they can do is delay things for a year. Right. If they do that, then the government can bring it back unchanged, and the House of Lords cannot amend it, one iota thereafter. Yeah. So it's very unusual. That's very unlikely, and I think it won't happen because the Labour Party would be mad to defeat this bill. They would give the government a one strong card it needs to revive its political fortunes.
Well, right. But so what if it gets sort of kicked into the long grass then, as it were, and comes back in a year's time? But in a year's time...
Well, no, I'm saying that I think that's very unlikely.
Oh, I see.
Because if Labour defeat it this time and put it off for a year, they will be held to account in the country for having stopped us taking action when clearly this is a problem that's growing every day.
Yes, well, absolutely. But, I mean, it's growing every day, but nobody seems to be willing enough to do anything about it because despite saying things, this government hasn't managed to do anything. And what I was going to say was if it is delayed for another year, by the time that comes around, it may well be that we have a Labour government anyway.
Heaven forfend, but that is a possibility according to the opinion polls.
Well, exactly. And they may wish then to be the ones that put it into action and say, well, OK, we were the government that actually made it happen.
Well, they'll find it more difficult to get elected if they are seen to have stopped this government doing anything. It's trying to do it. It's got this bill going before Parliament. It should, with luck, get royal assent before the summer recess, and then we'll be able to implement it. Sorry, we won't. Still won't be able to implement it because we have to wait for the Supreme Court judgment. Then that may be appealed to the European Court of Human Rights, and that's the point where we may have to say to the European Court of Human Rights, sorry, you're making essentially a political judgment. We are going to override it, or we're going to take action ahead of it.
Right.
And wait, act and not wait to see what their conclusions are.
No, indeed. I don't know whether you've seen this story today, Lord Lilley, in the Sun, in which it's revealed by their political editor, Harry Cole, that basically there was a plan put together by the Home Office in which they had a sort of a migrant bill pretty much oven ready to go, but Number 10 actually vetoed it, and this was under Liz Truss's administration, short-lived as it was.
I haven't seen that article, I'm afraid, so I don't know what this alleged bill consists of.
Well, it was basically supposed to be an emergency break on visas to help cut the figure to levels that were promised in the Tories' 2019 election manifesto, because, of course, a lot of people are more concerned in some ways with the legal immigration numbers now, 1.2 million people coming in 2022, than the illegal ones coming on the boats.
Well, I would agree with them that the illegal immigration is an affront to our national sovereignty, but allowing more than 1 million people to come here legally a year and net more than 1.2 million in 2 years is absurd. I don't think it needs actually a bill. It needs some statutory instruments, and it can be done within the powers government already has to reduce the inflow, and it ought to do so and do so rapidly.
Yeah. I mean,
it's got to reject the absurd arguments of business that we need migration because there's a overall labour shortage.
Well, I was going to come to that.
Yeah, well, can I just explain why it's a nonsense argument? Because migrants consume as much as they produce.
Right.
So if there's a excess of consumption relative to production, it doesn't change it at all. It just means that we've got a bigger labour force and a bigger amount of consumption.
Well, I just don't
that's why we've imported millions of people, and the number of vacancies has gone up.
Yeah. And, I mean, we always get this argument as well that many of those coming in on visas are coming to study. Some of them can bring dependents, which I'm not sure is a great idea because the ones who are studying might be contributing money to the economy, but the dependents are certainly not. And at the end of the day, we don't really know how many of those people who study are hanging around afterwards. You know, we don't know quite really how many people are in this country at this moment, do we?
Probably not, but we do know roughly a third of students do stay on beyond their original visa. Some get additional study visas, others get work visas, and it's clear that the original grant of a student visa for many people is simply a way of getting access to live in this country rather than selling education to them to take back to their own countries at the end of their studies. Right. The latter is terrific. I'm all in favour of that. And, of course, if students come here and then leave, then over a time they add nothing to the population.
Right. And that's the other problem, that, you know, when they say that these people are coming because we need them to do jobs, as you say, that British people won't do, we've just learned today that something like £8.6 billion is being lost to benefit fraud every single year. These are people, presumably, who claim they can't work, who should be working.
Absolutely. I suspect that the bulk of that is probably the resident population already here rather than new migrants. Most migrants want to come and earn a lot of money and send some of it back to their relatives and so on. It's just that we're a a country that's overpopulated already and don't need extra people from abroad.
No, exactly right. I wish you were back in the government, Lord Lilley. Can you not sort of engineer that in some way, shape or form? Because they seem to be sadly lacking a lot of common sense at the moment.
I'm available if there are any vacancies.
Excellent. I shall nominate you.
They don't need to import from abroad.
No, you certainly don't. Forthwith I shall nominate you. Former Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party, Lord Peter Lilley. You know, why can the government not have people like Lord Lilley speaking like he speaks? Common sense. We don't need migrants to fill jobs that British people won't do. Make the people who are fraudulently taking benefits do those jobs, for heaven's sake.